Hey guys, how's it going? It's Kire here with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over 4 tips and tricks on how to help you instantly improve your arena team. And before we begin, if you'd like to help support this ad-free raid channel, please hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really helps with the channel. And with that, let's get into it. So for the first tip, it's going to be making sure you have a balanced comp. Every arena team has about 4 roles that you're going to want to fulfill, and then the characters are going to vary, but they're all going to be fulfilling that particular role. Let's break down what those roles are. So the first one, one of the most obvious ones, is going to be your leader / your speed booster. Okay. And so what that is normally it's Arbiter. You'll see a ton of Arbiters out here, but there's a whole bunch of characters as you progress through the game. Arbiter is more of like into mid-game, start of in-game style character after you complete all the missions. But there's like Gorgorab, there's Seeker, there's even like Spirit Host. There's a whole bunch of characters that you can get at, and you'll slowly improve them based on how lucky you are with pulls or where you're just at in the game. And so Arbiter's going to be like the example here, but you'll see a whole bunch of them, Kaimar's one, stuff like that have that speed aura. And also you're going to want to make sure you have not only a speed aura, but then a speed booster. And so she increases your turn meter by 30%. That's going to be incredibly important to make sure not only that she goes first, but then everyone on your team also goes quick too. So you're going to want her. How you're going to gear her, we'll get into that later, but mainly she's going to be your fastest character, and then everyone else is going to be a little slower. So because you're going to be fighting for her to go first over their speed booster. So that's going to be role number 1. Like role number 2 is you're going to want some type of damage, and so it could be either AoE damage, it could be single target damage, and then that's going to vary. It seems like we're kind of in a meta shift currently. It used to just be a whole bunch of AoE damage, like Skull Crown was probably incredibly popular. Ray was incredibly popular. As these massive AoE characters, you make sure you got your Arbiter, speed boost the team, and then they one-shot everyone with a ton of burst. Big End is another example, but the meta is kind of shifting to where those characters still exist in the meta, but there's a lot of single target damage dealers nowadays. Like for me, I'm using Gala Long Braids. A lot of people, if you guys did the fusion, you could do Rhodos. Rhodos is probably the absolute best at this. Other examples of single target damage dealers would be a really good one that I wish I had is Blood Gorge. Blood Gorge is awesome. He has, attacks when enemy will ignore defense, and then enemies killed by the skill cannot be revived. Very good. But Rhodos has been changing the game in the sense that, let me find him. I believe he's here. No. Yeah, he's here. Okay, so here's Rhodos. So he's such a meta-defining character because he has this attacks on enemy, ignores 75% of the target's defense, and will also ignore unkillable and block damage buffs, grants an extra turn if it kills an enemy, and then enemies killed by the skill cannot be revived. So it's doing pretty much everything. It's like a better version of what Blood Gorge does. But the big reason why he's changing the meta is because of this. His passive here will decrease the damage from a single enemy hit so that incoming damage will not exceed 50% of the damage max HP. And so that's why people like Skull Crown, people like Ray have been kind of moving away from the higher end meta, because if you have that character and you see a Rhodos, you try to go for the AoE, all you're doing is just giving him an extra turn. So that's why these single target damage dealers have been getting so popular. So not only is he a really good version of a single target damage dealer, he's also the reason why single target damage dealers are significantly better nowadays. And so examples of that would be, actually, the one that I use is Gala. I really like Gala. She's void, so you never have to worry about her not. So you're looking for multi-hitter. Let me start with, you're looking for a multi-hitter in this role. If you're going to be going for a single target damage dealer, for a lot of people, if you're still in, bronze, silver, gold, you're probably not going to really need, you're probably going to want to just find a good AoE character like your starter, like Kale. But nowadays, just what you want to think for the future, having a single target damage dealer that multi-hits, that ignores defense, is going to be something you're really going to want to look out for because of characters like Rhodos. So what makes Gala so good is she has a move that can actually kill Rhodos because she attacks 3 times and it ignores defense. And then she also does and then it also gives her an extra turn. Then she also has moves here that ignores 50% of the target's defense when she has a shield buff. So she does a ton of damage. She's really good at like sniping, for example, kill the Rhodos and then kill the Arbiter, kill the Rhodos and then kill the Duchess. So she's a really good character there. And then also her A1's pretty good too, which attacks one enemy 2 times and ignores 30% of the defense. So she's really good kit. If you have her, if you pulled her, that's a pretty good option. There's better options out there though, like for example, Rhodos. Another good example of one is, you've seen a lot of this guy, is Brachus. Because he has a multi-hitter, so he's going to be able to take care of the enemy team's Rhodos, and he also has a way of reviving when he dies. So it's like, and then I believe it gives him, immediately gets an extra turn. So that's really important. Is if you're going against those like AoE teams, or if they happen to go first, he still gives you a little bit of an insurance policy like Rhodos does. So those are good examples of damage dealers. And then the AoE damage dealers that pretty much everyone has is going to be the big first one you're gonna have is probably Kale here. Hopefully you pick the right starting character. Kale's amazing when it comes to starting out the game. I've seen this guy used all the way up to gold 4. Maybe people have gotten him up to plat. I'm not sure. But when you get, so based on your gear, you can do a lot of stuff with Kale still all the way through gold 4. And then eventually you're gonna want to replace him with someone better, but he's a good place to start. And then a lot of people, Skull Crown is another super good example of an AoE damage dealer. Kind of cool thing about her too is she has a multi-hit on her A1. So based on how well it's probably not going to be able to kill Rhodoses, but at least you have an option better than just going for the nuke and giving him a free turn, which is this move. This move has a crazy modifier on it. Okay, so now that we got an idea of the damage dealers, let's go with the next rule, which is going to be like a debuffer usually. And so to help your damage dealers one-shot some of the tankier characters. So let's go back to Arena. And this is going to be characters like Madame Ceres is by far the best, in my opinion, when it comes to this role. Because if you look at her kit here, she has, not only does she remove all buffs, which that alone, removing buffs in Arena is probably the absolute best thing you can do in Arena. Like Kymar has it, Ray has it, Madame Ceres has it, and a few others do too, but those are the big notable ones of being able to remove buffs, like AoE remove buffs, a massive ability. But then the big thing is like AoE decreased defense debuff. Like that is really good. Just that alone is going to be really good for Arena, because then you're going to be able to set it up to where you have your speed boost, you have your defense down, and then you have your one shot for the most part. And then later on when you get to Rhodoses and stuff like that, then you're going to want to still have that decreased defense, but your single target damage dealer is going to go in and snipe them. And so that very good character for this. Other examples, like a free to play example of this character is going to be in Barbarians. This is a super popular character, War Maiden here, which is attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance, 100% when booked, decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. So that's a really good place to start. And then slowly you'll get better and better characters that can fulfill that role for you. And then lastly, this one's kind of a hard to define skill. I kind of call this like a flex spot for Arena, but it's kind of like a disruptor is how I think of it. And for example, my version of a disruptor would be Tormund. Tormund is like the best at that, because as they increase turn meter, then you're going to freeze them and stuff like that. So he disrupts what they're trying to do. Other examples that I switch in would be Valkyrie. Valkyrie is another example of a disruptor to me, in the sense that she's manipulating turn meter. So as champions' turn meter increased by 10%, each enemy places a buff, enemy champions will have their turn meters decreased by 10%. So it's a good way of, oh hey, my arbiter's not as fast as theirs, but I can try to snipe in and fit my characters to go in and try to interrupt their turns, and then hopefully be able to win the match because of that. Another example of a disruptor would be, well, this guy, sleeper pick, this Agnar character here. If you've been playing the game for a while, he's pretty notorious as like the absolute worst Void legendary, but he did get a buff, and the buff actually makes him incredibly good, especially due to how the meta is with all the Rhodoses. He's like the ultimate like Rhodos killer due to his A2 here. It's a combination of his A2 and his passive, but what it is it's this A2 is awesome for disrupting enemy team. You boost him up. Hopefully he goes like second, and then attacks all enemies, places a provoke debuff for 1 turn, places a 30% reflect damage buff on all allies for 2 turns. Also places a counterattack buff on this champion for 2 turns. So great way of being able to shut down many characters. Yeah, it's if you happen to make sure he goes before like a block debuff buff happens, you're going to shut down the whole team for an entire turn. And he has this passive here. He's going to be because he has counterattack on himself, and he has this passive. The enemy with a provoke debuff attacks has a 40% chance, 50% when booked, placing a provoke debuff on them for 1 turn. Each hit taken will reduce damage. So not only is he reducing his own damage, but he has the ability to keep placing that provoke on them and really lock them down. But in Arena, you really only need 1 turn. So the funny thing is not only does he have the reflect damage, he has the counterattack, and his A1 actually hits kind of hard. About like when it crits, I crit for about 10k ish on damage dealers. So if you hit the Rotos is gonna hit him. He's gonna reflect some of that damage back to the Rotos, and also the counterattack is gonna make him attack the Rotos immediately, and so then Rotos is pretty much gonna die, or he's gonna get into killable range, like just based off Agnar alone, which is pretty cool. Like being able to counter one of the best characters in the meta is awesome. He went from a completely garbage void character that's been in the vault ever since he came out to being able to counter one of the best arena characters. So if you have him, keep that in mind. And then so that's pretty much for the disruptor. There's a whole bunch of other ones, like Harvest Jack comes to mind. There's a ton of options. You know, anyone that can stun, or you know, ideally you'd want your disruptor to be something that is happening passively, so you don't have to worry about their speed. That's why I really like Tormund. That's why I really like Valkyrie, because they're constantly doing something without having to go first, or without it having to even go in their example. So those are the best versions of that. There's really not that many versions of characters that can do that, but those are good to keep in mind. That's going to have options, and this is going to be a tip as you further progress in Arena, especially as you hit like Gold 4 and stuff like that, and you're trying to push. What you're going to want is have multiple in that flex spot, that 4th spot, maybe even multiple flex options. But you're going to want to be able to have characters on the back burner that you can sub in based on your matchup, and that's going to take trial and error. That's going to take practice. It's going to popping into streams, and then be able to see what they're doing, kind of give you some options to maybe face comps a little better, maybe give you some wins that you wouldn't have gotten, stuff like that. So for me personally, I have a few flex options. Usually this is pretty much my core 3 right here, which is Arbiter, Gala, and Madame Ceres. But I'll flex in that 4th spot a lot. For example, if they're a heavy speed buffing team, they buff themselves a ton, that's going to be a Tormund team. If they don't have their own Tormund and I just want to go faster than them, maybe like a Lysandra, what I'll do is I'll put in another speed booster. And so I know most people won't have this, but I just put in a second Arbiter. But I mean, the concept applies with another, Apothecary. If you make him really quick, you can even put like Golden Reaper. But the cool thing about having double speed boost teams is that you're speed boosting twice. So it's like normally what happens when you're facing like Arbiter versus Arbiter, what happens is your Arbiter goes, their Arbiter goes, then the speed comes down to all the speeds you have on like my Madame Ceres and Gala versus his. Here, let me get a better example. Versus, let's see. So like here, see how he has 2 speed boosters. So if like I boost, then let's say I go a little bit before their Arbiter, I'm going to boost, she's going to boost, then it's going to come down to the speeds of these people versus the speeds of mine. Whereas if I go boost, then I'll be able to hopefully beat out both speed people, so all my characters are significantly faster than theirs. This one is going to be tough. This is going to come down to gear because she has 2 speed boosters as well, but it's a good way to completely speed out their team, and then they'll never even get a chance to go. It's just hard to do because a lot of people are in Tormund, so you need very specific gear. You're probably going to need like immunity gear to be able to pull that off in this particular scenario. But usually I save that strategy for when they don't have a Tormund. But that's another flex option. So you got a second speed booster if you want to. Like I use Agnar a ton it really helps out versus Rhodos's. Another one is Valkyrie. I'll put in sometimes as well, based on it's just you. It's going to be a lot of trial and error. A lot of times, it's a very vague tip, I know, but having options based on the situation, and then this also the situation is going to be changing constantly as the meta goes. If you watch this video today, these exact situations are going to apply, but maybe if you watch this video in like 2 months, the meta is going to be completely different. But just having the concept is going to be important. So tip 3 is going to just be understanding the meta. Okay, so tip 3 is going to be understanding the meta. What I mean by that is just understanding what you're going to be facing, and also having an understanding of what you can use to beat it. It's going to take, just some game knowledge. It's going to take practicing in arena. Actually, the more you play, the more you're going to understand what you're going to start to see some patterns here. What I like to do as well, if you want to try to get some insight on what people are using, I like to check out the top players feature, and just so you can see, like, a lot of times you'll see some things here that you'll see a lot of repeat stuff. Like, take this with a grain of salt, and also these guys are, pretty big spenders here. So they're going to have like the absolute most packed rosters you possibly can see, have, like pretty much Roto Sifi combos, double Valkyrie combos with Sifi, you got Hegemons and stuff like that. But you'll probably, it's still useful if you just take it with a grain of salt. It is useful to kind of get an idea. It's like, oh, okay, like even up here people are using Foley, and then Foley's actually a pretty good character right now. He has his like a multi-hit on his A3, like so he can actually take care of Rhodos's. He has the block revive, which is great in this meta. I didn't really touch on that, but when it comes to like characters, I do want to touch on that. Is block revive is actually really great. Some of the champions that have it, for example, Foley has it on his, and then he was a fusion character, so people should have him, which is, attacks all enemies, decreases turn meter by 15%, then attacks the targeted enemy. Enemies by this skill cannot be revived. So he's actually really good for this meta if you don't have a character that can kill Rhodos's, because I don't know, it took me a while to realize this, but he hits twice. He hits twice, so he is a multi-hitter, and he blocks revive, which is great, because you just want to make sure you target the Rhodos. Target the Rhodos, he'll hit him twice, and then if you have him geared properly, he should kill him. And he'll block revives of the other people he kills, which is great. Because like a lot of people, like you'll see a ton of tanky duchesses as you go up, super hard to kill in one hit. That's a good one. Another really good character is that does the whole block revive thing. This one's gonna be really tough to get, but it's Blood Twin. What's cool about him is that enemies killed by this champion cannot be revived. It's not like stuck to a move. That's what I really like about this guy. That's why like you see people actually use him in like Ice Golem, because it's every move that he kills with will block the revive, instead of having to get lucky with him just so happening to kill one of the side people with the proper move. So super good ability, and you can just kill someone, they can't be revived. Really good against Duchess, really good against Sifi, really good against Arbiter. And then lastly, it's going to be Blood Gorged. He does the whole can't be revived, which is great. And also Tormund, really good against Tormund. Just smoke him, and he doesn't have that whole revive thing. So really good thing. I just wanted to touch on that really quick. And that's another thing, just about understanding the meta. Those characters are like meta characters that you're going to be facing, and you're going to want to have to be able to deal with them. Or if you have them, know that they're actually good, and put them as part of your toolkit of one of your options in your arena team based on who you face. And so another thing too. Okay, so I guess so. The thing, my takeaways of to give you guys an example of what I mean by understanding the meta, the things that I see a ton of that I always want to look out for and want to make sure I can actually beat are, we look at these teams here and the top players. You got to have a way of dealing with, Hegemon. I think Immunity Gear is a really good way of dealing with Hegemons. You want to be able to deal with Krisk. Tormund's a really good way of dealing with him, because he has many moves that freeze him. Cleansing is really important too, because he applies that shield on spawn, so being able to cleanse is super important. You see Rhodos is dealing with him as multi-hitters. You're going to want to be able to do with that, or being able to provoke him, reflect damage, stuff like that is going to be important to be able to beat him. And then also Arbiters, that's another Tormund thing. Also just having another faster Arbiter. Those are going to be good ways to be able to handle Arbiter. Oh, and also block revive is going to be really good as well in making sure she doesn't, revive, which is great. So for Sifi's, her and Duchess, they feel very similar. I think Sifi's a little bit better because of the synergy with Rhodos, but they're very similar in the sense that they have block debuffs buff, and so I felt cleanses are the best way. Provokes are a really good way, like outspeeding them and provoking helps a lot. It tries to delay that. Another thing that I really like is if you have this guy. This is very, very specific, but Rashguard is amazing because he has these buffs cannot be resisted. So he has a attacks when enemy blocks cooldown skills debuff and a block buffs debuff for 2 turns. So that's a good way to prevent her from using her really powerful move, which is, let's just show it. So for the visual learners out there, this guy, be able to block this move here. This move is just insane. It's so frustrating to play against, and it's on a 3-turn cooldown, so it's constant throughout the fight. It makes you have to deal with her immediately, or she'll just grind you out. Which is fills the turn meter of allies by 15%, places a block defense buff and a 60% increased defense buff and a 30% increased speed buff on allies for 2 turns. So that's really important to be able to shut her down as quickly as possible. So that's another way of being able to deal with her. And then also Duchess, very similarly, like being able to have block revives are really good. That's why Rhodos is so good against Duchess, in my opinion. People that ignore defense, because people make sure that they're super tanky. So those are good ways. That's the meta currently. Those are good ways to try to answer it. With that, let's get into our last tip. Okay, and so now tip number 4 is going to be gearing correctly. And so what I mean by that is, let's go to how I got my characters geared. So now that we have an idea of what the meta is, now we can kind of get some ideas of like how we gear our characters and see if we could try to beat them. So first thing is going to be when you look at the characters, what the meta characters we see a ton of. Let's go back to Arena. We see a ton of Tormund. We see a lot of Krisk. We see Hegemons. We see Sifis, speed boosters, stuff like that. So we're seeing a lot of the. You're gonna see a lot of the same themes, but you're probably not gonna see all these stacked onto one team. Like, these people have absolutely disgusting rosters, so you're probably gonna pick 2 of them, pick one of these characters, and you're probably gonna see them on your against one of them. Like maybe like Arbiter and Rhodos, or Arbiter and Valkyrie, or Arbiter and Tormund, stuff like that. That's gonna be more realistic for most people when you're in Arena. So the big ones, I think, a lot of people are frustrated with. Probably the biggest one is Tormund. And for me, my favorite way of dealing with Tormund is through immunity gear. And so I have immunity gear on every single character I use in Arena. Mainly, I have it on Agnar. I have it on. I don't have it on Arbiter. And then I have it on Saris. She uses immunity gear. And then also on Gala. Let me find her. So what this allows me to do is it allows me to still be able to speed boost into Torments and not have to worry about getting frozen. And that's a really good way of countering Torments. And it completely changes theory crafting. Like it used to be before having immunity gear, you just had to get frozen. And so then it would make me want to take out Arbiter and maybe try something else. Maybe try my own Tormund, or maybe go for a tanky team, maybe go for a resistance team. But I just didn't like that. Change the whole team, and so thinking outside the box a little bit. Oh yeah, it seems like immunity gear is pretty well known, but it makes it to where you can not have to completely change your roster or remove these characters that are incredibly good, have been top of the meta for so long. You can still take advantage of their benefits without having to worry about getting frozen. It reduces the RNG, and then a lot of times you'll find that people with Torments, their comp is kind of based around being tanky and stuff like that, so you don't have to have as much speed, I've found. But it makes the Tormund matchup incredibly easy. Let me find one. So here's an example of a team with Tormund. I'm going to throw my own Tormund in because they have a lot of characters that are going to get hit by it, like Valkyrie here. But here's an example. Okay, so she still gets frozen, but I have most of my speed gear on Arbiter. What this is going to allow us to do, hopefully we go, yep, and then now what we can do is, since she's going to be weak, we can choose between one of the 2 people we want to kill. We can kill her or him. I'm just going to kill him, just get rid of him for For now, she's probably going to res him. But now we at least have the option to maybe provoke. And then now we can go for the kill here in a second. Let's try to get a fear. Yep, we got it. And then now we don't have a shield, so I'm not going to do A2, but maybe A1 can be enough. And got an unlucky no crit, but then we'll finish her off here. So that's a good way to be able to take a team that normally I would look at and be like, wow, this team is going to be completely rough to face. This is going to be a grinder match. It's going to take forever, but simply gearing your characters with immunity gear allows you to completely subvert this entire character that just got nerfed. Like he was useless. Like he didn't do anything, all because we geared properly. And now it's pretty much a wrap. Like this is the annoying thing about these teams is they take a bit to finish up, but I think that proved my point on like just gearing properly allows matchups that would normally be incredibly hard, if not like just unbeatable, to just a walk in the park. All right, guys, well that should do it for this video. If you like content like this, please consider subscribing, and also I'll be on Twitch TV/Kire Mobile. If you want to catch me there, feel free to come kick it. We can ask questions, whatever. And you guys have a good one. Peace.